You're listening to 88.7 WLUW Chicago Sound Alliance, broadcasting from the campus of Loyola University. It's live from the Heartland, featuring Michael James, Katie Hogan, and Thom Clark. Today's guests are Glenn Reedus, veteran editor, Kacie Smith from State Matters, and Funkadesi. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show.
Hey, buckle up and get ready for another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. Thank you, Kev Mo, for bringing us in. This is Michael James. I'm here with Katie Hogan and Thom Clark, and we're going to be talking with Glenn Reedus, a guy who's a veteran editor and knows a lot about a lot of things. We're going to have Kacie Smith talking about State Matters, and we're going to have the incomparable, the one, the only Funkadesi, going to kind of world soul music here. So we're glad you tuned in to Live from the Heartland. We're here every week. Make sure you look at us on YouTube, youtube.com/HeartlandMedia. Get ready for Live from the Heartland. Here we go.
Well, you know, we could talk about the Vatican and rampant clericalism, and we could talk about troops massing at the border in Venezuela. We could talk about those nuclear plants they're trying to sell to Saudi Arabia, or Britain's Labour Party breaking up, or the latest in apartheid in Israel, or we're staying in Syria after all.
But just tell me, what really made your head explode this week, Thom Clark?
That Planned Parenthood can't give full counseling to women seeking family planning advice.
All right, let me just ask that same question of Michael James.
Well, I'm a little blown away that there's people out there in Chicagoland who are even thinking about voting for Daley rather than Lori Lightfoot or Tony Preckwinkle or someone else. I mean, I don't get it. The Daleys did a lot of mean stuff to this town, and this guy is not very good. He's not very progressive, and he really isn't an environmentalist, despite Al Gore.
Wow, that was wordy. I
blew the rules.
What made my mind explode, my brain explode, was reading that Trump, which means you and I, are
you
paying,
used his name.
Are paying farmers $7 billion.
Billion, not million.
Yeah, billion. Because of his trade war with China. I was going to say the appearance continually on my feed on Facebook of Rembrandt in Art Institute, but I didn't think it was heavy enough. Okay.
It wasn't heavy enough.
All right, early voting continues.
What's the weather forecast looking like, Katie?
Well, for Tuesday, it will be a little colder than it is today and snowy, so I'm recommending people vote early.
Actually, come on.
Talk at the same time.
In our ward, it's actually going to be 21 degrees and cloudy, mostly cloudy.
Okay.
That's the latest from WeatherBug
But
for 60626.
Okay.
But what I really want to know is what's the temperature in the precincts right now? What kind of energy and activity are you feeling?
Well, I heard from somebody who keeps track of this stuff that the early voting is up in our ward, and she wanted to know why, because her ward usually is better than ours in early voting. And I said, well, we do have kind of an active race in the aldermanic position, so...
Yeah, she has a shoe-in. The person who gave you the info has a shoe-in in her ward, so that's...
Okay. That's...
Our insider talk for the week.
Yeah, hopefully.
But you're sensing a lot of excitement. Even though early voting took a little while to take off, it seems to have really taken off now.
So early voting continues today, tomorrow, Sunday, and Monday until 5 p.m. You can vote in the neighborhood. And I know some people who might show up with cookies if there's a long line at the early voting station, don't I?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, Kate.
So we're going to talk more about this with our first guest in a few moments, but I just want to share, I feel there's been a lot of hand-wringing over all these choices we have for mayor and how difficult it is. And I know a lot of people didn't start paying attention to this election until about 2 weeks ago when the Super Bowl was over. But having said that, to quote Cheryl Corley, a veteran reporter in town on a radio show on a sister station yesterday morning, this has to have been one of the more thoughtful mayoral campaigns we've had in a while in terms of the issues displayed and the amount of discussion that's taken place on both social media, forums. There have been forums up the gazoo, and while it may be a lot of candidates, why is it we're so chagrined over small d democracy after 40 or 50 years of Daley? You know, it seems to me it's a very exciting moment that people really ought to be fully engaged and excited.
Okay,
they have so many choices.
I don't know if I have to point this out to you, Thom, but it's kind of a depressing time politically. People are lacking in trust for the entire process. They can't tell one from the next because they're all claiming to be progressive. regular voters who have paid attention all their lives know for sure half of it is untruths, and part of the rest of it, no matter how good their intentions are, they're not going to be able to carry those out or deliver because of our ridiculous financial situation. So I'm hoping for an over 50% turnout, which is pitiful, because that would be a great turnout for a mayoral and aldermanic races in every ward, because I think people are chagrined themselves at not knowing what's next, at not being clear about who they should pick. I think that the Network 49 straw poll was a pretty good one, as you put it.
What were the results of that?
Well, in order.
Network 49.
Yeah, Lori Lightfoot, Tony Preckwinkle, and Amara Enya. In other words, 49th Ward, Network 49 wants a black woman mayor, which I'm all for.
Me too.
And I do understand why people are trying to figure out how to make sure that Daley doesn't get in the top two. I think that is kind of the motivation of a lot of progressives around the city right now. I just don't know which way the black vote, which has been absolutely essential for any mayoral candidate, will fly. So I can't wait to hear what Glenn thinks.
So maybe we should go to Glenn, even though we have a few other things to talk about here,
Yeah, I
because
think
there
so.
is a lot on the agenda.
I mean, because he's right here.
We'll work in some of these other
would
things.
help.
And we'll talk about Venezuela later. I just wanted to say that I thought
Go
that on Public News Channel 11 last night, they did have a piece that was sort of sympathetic to the forces of the Chavista Revolution. You know, it's like it wasn't the usual stuff about this guy that Trump is trying to anoint to the presidency in Nicaragua. It showed that there are programs and people and constituencies that are supportive of the current government.
Yeah.
And I'm not defending them totally, but I certainly don't like this other guy.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Okay, that's good. No, it's Venezuela. People pay attention. This is not a good thing, but it's too complicated. We're going to have some pro come on soon to talk to us.
So we welcome to our Live from the Heartland microphone Glenn Reedus, who I first met when we were looking at the shifting media landscape and trying to figure out how to bolster ethnic media in a time of really significant economic and structural changes. So Glenn, a veteran journalist, editor, observer of the scene, how are you looking at this upcoming election?
In a lot of ways. One, I have a tendency to always give a lot of weight to the money. Because the money dictates your message. It dictates how many people you can put on the street come election day, how many people you can have leading up to election day who are out there evangelizing for you. So from what I see, it's daily. When I look at the early voting turnout in the black wards, it's very high.
Is it?
It's very high. Like, I think of those 18 black wards, maybe one is below 1,000, but they're averaging about 1,100 as of
Each
the
day?
19th. No,
Total.
total as of the 19th. But if you look at the history of early voting that started in 07,
Right.
there's a large increase every year just
There
because
is, because it gets more convenient.
it's more convenient and people are just used to it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's been a huge help, you know. And I think that the people at the Board of Elections have done everything they can to date to make voting very easy.
More
And
accessible.
yeah, my mother's 89, so I think when the last mayoral election, she wasn't getting around too
So
well.
your eyebrows-
But they brought a ballot out to the car for her.
Curbside voting.
Yeah.
Curbside voting. Excuse me for stepping on it. Your eyebrows went up when I said something about 50% turnout. What are you thinking it might be citywide?
Given the number of people running, I think we'd be very fortunate to hit 40%. Because you've
I was
got,
hoping you were going to go higher.
but well, one of the things you've got all of these candidates. However, you've got some who probably won't garner 1,000 votes.
Right.
Now, I really, really like Neil Solis Griffin. He's an extremely smart guy.
Real smart guy.
Yep.
Extremely. And he is one of those people, I think, if he could be helicoptered into the mayor's seat, no campaigns, no elections, just put Neil in, 9 months, he'd be doing a good job.
Are we talking about a coup here or what?
I hadn't thought about that in Chicago. But Neil, and I've talked to him a lot. He's just hell-bent on non-traditional campaigning. Yeah. He says, why do I need to go to a forum when there are voters over here? And I don't know if all the people at the forum can vote for me. Well, they can, Neil. You're running for citywide office, yeah.
Well, he's young. He can do this again, right?
Yeah, but, when you're young, your attention span isn't
This is
that great.
This is someone who's fallen under my radar. So you may want to say who he is.
Neil is 30. I think he's 32 now. He's a 32-year-old.
Getting up there.
Tech guy, for lack of a better term. He started a coding academy. He was able to sell the company, start a new one. He's an adjunct professor at University of Chicago, and he teaches part-time at Dyett High School. So he's really got his
finger on the pulse.
of the young people.
Right.
But the problem with young candidates, and we see this with Amara too, they think that it can be done differently, that campaigning can be done differently. And right now, it can't be. Not until you get a majority of millennials and the youngest baby boomers on the council.
We definitely want to get around to other issues, but we did see the youth vote turn up in November for the first time.
Yeah, and that's
in big numbers.
But midterms, regardless of what demographic,
I know it's different, right?
Midterms are always high.
No, the youth vote never showed up.
No,
before.
I'm not saying the youth vote. I'm saying overall voting for midterms is higher than municipal elections.
Right.
God, I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So based on your opening answer, it seems like you're thinking that it's Daley, Preckwinkle, because they have the most money.
I don't know that it's going to be Preckwinkle.
Okay.
Who do you think besides Daley?
I know it's tea leaves we're doing now, but I'm curious in your sense of where the energy and excitement is versus also wrong.
There's a lot of excitement regarding Lori Lightfoot, and I think that Tony Preckwinkle has taken a few hits.
Definitely.
And I it's hard to say about the last one because as I was battling with people on Facebook, Scott Cizik is a friend.
Scott Cizik is a friend of mine too.
And
I was sorry.
I just think that was a bad move on her part. But some other people are gonna just domino with the sugar tax and the guy with her staffer with the yard signs in the SUV and something else, and that might hurt her. And Lori so far has not had any of the damaging revelations that some of the other candidates have, like Amara. And then everybody, what do they call it now? And I can't remember. They had the Burke Four.
Yeah.
People who took money or had some connection
or
to
had
Ed
their
Burke.
wedding at his house.
Yeah.
Right.
So I need to ask you a question about the biggest money gatherer, Mr. Daley. What is it about our society that a measure of one's success is that you made $15 million a year as a banker at a very time when taxpayers are bailing out those banks and Main Street didn't get bailed out? I mean, why is it that we accept that modifier for Mr. Daley as success? I see it as depositor interest that I didn't get paid.
I don't see it as success. It's just he spent less than everybody to accumulate more, and it's an understanding. It's a huge understanding of politics, and it certainly doesn't hurt to have Ken Griffin know your name.
Ken Griffin is the guy who gave all the money to Rauner.
And just last week gave a couple
gave a
million
lot to Daley.
Daley.
So let's
2
just
million.
connect Daley to Rauner.
I don't know if you can do that. I saw the commercials.
Yeah.
But you're talking Rauner, who never participated in government really, and being a governor, and as you know, the higher up you go in the elected food chain, the less contact you have with the public. So I think Daley's going to be held to a very different standard than Rauner ever was.
That's interesting because some would say, who's Bill Daley? What's he been doing? Compared to Chicago politicians.
But there-
And I also just want to push back on the money thing just a tad because we were all here when Harold Washington beat Jane Byrne, who had $10 million, and he had like 100,000 or 200,000. So I mean, it's been done in this city. I like to think Chicago voters are smarter, and that when they see something, and I just lost it. It went away. The
Well,
thing about
let's-
Daley. Dang.
Well,
ahead.
I tend to say let's let Harold Washington rest in his grave.
Yeah.
Part of the big difference is that
We miss you, Harold.
we had partisan primaries then.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't have those now.
Right.
You don't have. I think you have to take 3 candidates to have the elected background that Harold Washington had when he was recruited to be mayor. Remember, he didn't run out there and say, "Hey, I want to be mayor."
No, right.
And
No,
people
we know
said, "We
that's
need
right.
you to be mayor."
He was also the sitting congressman with the most votes
Right.
of the 438 sitting congressmen.
Right, and so when you talk about the lack of money, but who had more name recognition?
Who had more other stuff. Good point.
Yeah.
To
And-
follow the daily money thing for just one more step, will newspaper endorsements make a difference? The Tribune, somewhat to my surprise, endorsed Daley. The Sun-Times, much to my delight, endorsed Lori Lightfoot, maybe giving her some new life because, as you indicated, there seems to be some growing excitement around her campaign with 3
A
days
lot
left.
of bounce.
I think
Are
that
endorsements going to be different this time? A lot of people poo-poo them as no one reads papers anymore. They don't influence anybody.
yeah, well, everybody keeps quoting them, so I don't know how you say people
Fascinating,
don't.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, I think that the Sun-Times endorsement is really gonna help Lori. Where she's gonna be hurt is just the fact that she's a lesbian, and the church people in the black community are not gonna be enthused about her candidacy.
Break up the black vote. What do you think? Where is it going? I know it's not monolithic, and this will prove it better than anything prior, I think.
I think one of the things I keep hearing is about experience. So I think that even though the hits that Preckwinkle has taken, she will probably get a huge chunk of it, but I'm seeing the majority of it going to Daley. And then
Willie.
fu-
Hey, I'm always appreciating Willie because he's the guy who helped us into the runoff 4 years ago. He helped Chewy into the runoff because he got enough.
yeah, he did. He
got
finished,
a good
he finished
percentage.
third.
Yeah.
But what I see is
Not this time.
he was
Right.
he was a shiny
one-hit
shiny
wonder.
new marble
Right.
in the box last time, but now he didn't hurt himself. I mean, he didn't help himself running for president.
Right.
if
Right.
You can call it
I
that.
missed that.
All 3 weeks of it, huh?
What do you think will be the big challenges of whoever the next mayor is? And how would they, that sheds some light on who the council will be. What are your thoughts about the future here?
It's going to be the best time in a long time for the city council and the mayor because, we don't know who's going to be there on the council. But Rod Sawyer, who is the current chair of the Black Caucus, has said on a few occasions, we are going back to the strong council, weak mayor form of government. And
Hallelujah.
and I believe that's what we're going to see. The council will flex, and the mayor will have to respond, versus what's been happening now. because regardless of who the mayor is, he might have some preferences for committee chairs, but I think you're going to have enough veteran council people around to say, no, that's not going to work. This is who it needs to be, and we go from there.
Interesting.
We've had several North Side aldermanic challengers on the show the last month or so, but one reason I really wanted to talk to you before the election was to get a better sense of what might be happening in key wards outside the North Side,
Yeah.
particularly in the South Side. What wards are you looking at in particular? And for lack of starting anywhere else, what's going to happen in 20? Some people consider the most corrupt ward in the city.
Explain who's.
There's probably a few
Willie
close
Cochran.
seconds and thirds.
Willie Cochran
Well,
is the current indicted alderman for that ward.
I love that term. It's all over. I mean, they've got what five people running,
Yeah.
and I can see her. I can see her face, her card in my head, and I can't come up with a name
Thank
yet.
God that happens to somebody else
Yes.
besides me.
Are there other wards?
And
that
you're the youngest guy at the table.
Yeah, really. Look out. It only gets worse.
Other wards, yeah. The fourth ward, because you've got Ebony Lucas, she ran before, and she's pushing hard this time, and she might have a chance because I don't see that Sophia King has really distinguished herself. Remember, she got put into that. She got put into
Slated.
that job. And so I think Sophia's gonna have a tough time. That's I think Bronzeville or in that area.
It's the entire lakefront. I mean, that ward is so long now.
Yeah, it's just like the what did Ken Duncan used to say, from the Gold Coast to the Soul Coast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. I'm hearing some rumblings in the 21st about Howard Brookins, but I think that's every election. Howard just
Plugs
Hangs in
away
there.
yeah, he just goes
like his dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be close, but I think he'll prevail. The eighth ward, Michelle Harris has been criticized immensely about her association with Rahm.
Mm-hmm.
But she's been around, 12 years, and she doesn't have
An opponent.
She's
a
got
strong
a-
opponent.
right. I think the lady's name, Linda Hudson, is her opponent, her top opponent. And then there's a guy named Fahim Shabazz who's run previously, and the biggest problem I see with so many of the challengers is, instead of explaining what they're going to do as council people, they talk about what the incumbent hasn't done.
Oh, you are so right.
And if you're paying attention, you know what the incumbent hasn't done
Exactly.
if you're living in that ward.
Exactly.
But and there doesn't seem to be a lot of meat and potatoes issues that people are bringing forth. Garbage collection, street lights. Those
Water
those kind of
taxes.
things. Yeah, that the council can have some say or control in. A lot of them want to present lofty ideas, but as I told one candidate, you're talking about lobsters, but the people in the 24th, the 29th, the 34th, and the 37th need to hear about bologna sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
And so you lose them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I don't know why that's so widespread right now at this time, but that's where challengers seem to be coming up short. Well, I know one of the things is so many of them are opposed to research, so they're telling the public what they
think-
want, what they want to do, instead of asking the public, what do you want? And that's just huge. I mean,
Shouldn't it be a mix of both?
yeah, you should have some of your own ideas.
Yeah.
But they should not be what you're forcing on voters.
So we've got, I mean, we have, what, when you say, I'm not sure what has brought this wave about, the young candidates, you've mentioned a couple of them, are coming off of the 2016 election. And it started, the candidate in our district attended one of those "you should run for office" workshops held all over the country in that time, and she's been doing that playbook ever since, which started with deep canvassing to find out what's on people's minds.
She has a real shot at winning.
She does, but I'm telling you, Glenn, in all the work I've done, paid work on campaigns, I've never actually witnessed a campaign like this. It's so chill. These kids, they don't freak out the way we did. As the election day becomes near, I don't know what to think of that. Well, I'll report back after election night, but...
They're making phone calls. They're knocking on doors.
yeah, they're doing all this stuff.
Before we run out of time, I want to shift
Sorry.
gears a little bit and talk about some other stories that have been happening, but in the context of where is journalism today? And I'm thinking of everything from blackface in Virginia to the Smollett case this week. You could even throw in R. Kelly because our own Jim DeRogatis pursued that story for almost 20 years.
I just heard him on the radio.
Yeah, so
on the way over.
why is it certain stories like the Empire Star story, I guess, is what really triggered this question in particular. Why do certain things like that just explode, and other things like unsolved murder rates or Burge torture becomes a narrative we just accept and live with and
Or
keep
Coast
telling?
Guard terrorist.
Oh yeah, that's a huge one. The Coast Guard terrorists.
Yeah.
Kind of like this. Let's take Thom Clark walking down 47th Street with a satchel, handing out $1,000 bills. On the other side of the street, you've got either a pro basketball player or
A celebrity.
a celebrity. There are going to be more people on the other side of the street than on Tom's side of the street. We're obsessed with celebrity. And I understand it to a certain age. I see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar now and I smile. But 40
He's
years
still a formidable dude.
He
but
is
40
that.
years ago, that's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Well, I like him because he stayed and even got more political.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he's a brilliant
He's
guy.
a serious dude.
Well, but let's take Derrick Rose. Speaking of serious dudes, go the opposite direction.
I'm glad he's doing well, though, playing. At least he was a week or two ago.
Keep posted.
But we're just obsessed with celebrity. I think another part of that is journalism just isn't what it used to be. You mentioned the 12-year-old journalist, and on the inside I said, be real. 12 years old, you write something. You're not a journalist. But Thom might be able to answer this. I know I'm supposed to
We
answer
try
the
not
questions.
to ask him questions.
But
Because we're short of time.
But now everybody, let's see, it was 75 when I got my first job. I was a reporter. I was in a newsroom full of reporters and editors. Nobody was a journalist. But today, everybody's a journalist. You're a blogger. You're a journalist. There's something missing there, and
education.
education and real experience.
Yeah.
I saw not long ago. I saw a 2,000-word story. No quotes.
No quotes. Yeah.
That's not a story. That's
Rewriting press
musing.
releases.
That's just musing.
Well, Glenn Reedus, I thank you so much for joining us in the weekend before Election Day and for your insights on what's happening or will be happening to the city. And good luck in your future pursuits.
Thank you
be
so
a
much.
Guy we have to do a podcast with at some point because we always cut you short.
You're listening
Thank
to
you
Live
for
from the
coming
Heartland on WLUW 88.7 FM. Please like us on Facebook.
In a little tent